Sauete mihi nomen est, Stella, et hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 268 for December MMXXV. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, I'm super excited. I feel like it's been a long time since I've had a guest on this show. This is a super special guest. So, my guest might be best known for the IDW's 2015 through 2017 Gem and the Holograms comic with co creator and artist Sophie Campbell. Or maybe the Eisner nominated Marvel comic Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, of course, with artist Leonardo Romero, whom we love on this show. Or maybe Captain Marvel featuring Carol Danvers with artist Carmen Carnero and colorist Tamara Bonvillain, or Eisner Award winning comic Absolute Wonder Woman with artist Hayden Sherman, or maybe just maybe it's the current incarnation of Birds of Prey reaching its bittersweet end this month. So please welcome Eisner Award winning writer Kelly Thompson to the show. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It is absolutely my pleasure, as the Chick-fil-A people say. Um, no, it's been great. I always just try to like reach out. Could I get this? And you're just so receptive. And as we were talking about off mic, it has been great to almost review and read in parallel with you because I have questions and then I'll ask my questions on the show because I don't have, someone to talk to. And then you'll come in, via socials and you'll answer those questions for me. And it's been a great way to engage. And, we often ask about authorial intent and we can only, think, oh, I believe it's this way. But to have the author come in and say, actually, this is what I intended has been, yeah, such a blessing. So very much appreciate all those interactions.
Of course, we talked about this a little bit, but I sometimes feel a little strange about it, but I also feel like it is sort of what social media was so great about in the beginning was like the way we were all connecting a little bit more over stuff we loved. So I don't know. I always sort of gauge it out if I see something and I'm like, oh, do I want to put my finger on the scale here or not? But I've listened to your podcast before. I was telling her this off air, but doesn't she have the greatest podcast voice? Anyway, so I thought in this case, I mean, I don't know. I just sort of felt like we had a rapport. I also feel like, it's hard. I don't, the ideal situation is your intent is clear. But when you're trying to do anything with any subtlety or layers, or you're building something for later, like those things are easy to misinterpret or miss. And those are different than a mistake necessarily, especially because comics, I mean, you know this better than any of us, but it's such a strange medium to review and talk about because you're talking about it in these small pieces that are meant to be read individually, but then are supposed to combine to a greater whole. It's just like a very tricky thing. I mean, the closest thing we have to it, I guess, in the way we view things on a major level is television, but a television season it's never supposed to hang together as well as a book that gets collected into one volume. You know what I mean? So you really have to think about where those seams are. And especially if you're reviewing individual issues on the fly, I feel like, I don't know, if the questions like come from a really good place and I feel like I could help, I'm happy to get involved, even if I wish I didn't have to, because you always want it to be right the first
Yeah.
time, you know?
Yeah.
But I
I
also
w-
feel like there's a huge difference between people that, sorry, I also feel
no,
like
no,
there's
no,
a
that's
huge
you're
difference
good. Yeah.
between people who are just sort of not reading carefully and the difference between people who like podcast and review and like take comics very seriously and like I don't know. I feel like that deserves a little bit more of a response than just the random comment, you know?
Sure, yeah. Who might actually be just reacting to other people's reactions instead of actually
Exactly. Like if
reading it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like if you're reacting to some comment on Twitter, like did they even read the book? Where did they read it? Did they see the whole thing or did they just hear from somebody else? But like I know that someone like you is really taking the time to like be engaged in the work. And that's sort of beautiful. And it's great that we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, in your defense, as a teacher, when I'm making assessments, I'm going over it multiple times, being sure directions are clear. And inevitably, one student will ask me some sort of question. I'm like, I never imagined it would have been interpreted in that way. So, just there's
Yeah,
always one oddball that I think
that
will interpret something that you could never have imagined it being
I
interpreted that way.
totally think that is a thing. It's
Yeah.
why you have to, it's why I think that adage done is better than perfect is like because it there's perfect doesn't exist. Like if you stitch the most perfect thing ever that you are sure has no mistakes, someone will come along with some wild idea that you could never even have considered. And now you've like literally like threaded your sanity into the perfection of that project and now it's coming undone. So I'm not saying to be sloppy, but I do think perfection doesn't exist. So
Oh,
you
yeah,
might as
absolutely.
well create. You might as well create and let it be a little messy sometimes.
You bet. Yeah. Well, I always like to start off because I'm interested, and I think listeners are, what your history is with comics in particular. Just, how did you get into that, or superheroes? And then your history with the Bat family and Barbara Gordon specifically, since this is the Barbara Gordon podcast.
Um, so I got into comics the way a lot of people around my age did, which is that I saw the X-Men animated series. And then a while after that, my brother came home very excited because he had a comic with Storm on the cover, and he's like, it's the girl from the cartoon. And that was it. I was a comic nerd, and the whole rest of my life changed course. I do have to give shout out credit to Archie Digest, which I did read when I was young. I just didn't understand the ecosystem. Like there were
Mm,
other comics out there, there were stores, what they were. I just thought these are fun comics that they sell at the grocery store. Like it was just a completely disconnected thing. But I do think it goes a long way when you learn to read comics young. There's just an engagement like it just comes naturally to you no matter when you pick it up if you learned it when you were little. um and so I always like to give credit that Archie's got me. They were the gateway drug. I was just a bit too lazy to find the rest of the room, and it took until I was a teenager to really discover the whole world of it. um, I got into Batman pretty quick. It was not a long trip from X-Men to Batman. I mean, there's a reason he's one of the most popular characters in the world. He's great. He really sells. He's got a whole brilliantly built world and characters all around him. Um, Barbara Gordon, I honestly think because of my age and what I was reading when I first got in, I believe my first interactions with Barbara, and I wish I could remember the first one, but it's got to be as Oracle.
mm,
It was only later that I encountered her as Batgirl, which I know feels really wrong to a lot of people. I mean, she was in a 60s TV show as Batgirl. Like, surely you saw her there and understood it, but I just didn't really have that. And a lot of the media that had come out at that time didn't feature her either, like the Batman, the Burton movies and things like that. Like, she wasn't a factor. It wasn't a thing. So I first encountered her as Oracle and I loved her. I just really liked that version of her. But I do think it creates a strange experience. I feel like everyone's got their own journey with Barbara because how you came to her might be the way you love her most or the way that feels most natural to you. And everyone disagrees about what that is and what that should be. I think in that respect, she's inadvertently become a really difficult character to
mm.
write because people have a lot of personal, very personal emotional stakes in what she means to them. And I mean, I think you can only say what a powerful character that makes her, like that many people are attaching to her so intensely that they feel borderline violent about it when you do something different with her. Um, so I think she's really tricky. I think I always view her as Oracle. I struggle to see her in the Batgirl role, but I also want to be honest about that. Is that part of the reason I struggle to see her as Batgirl is because Cass Kane is my Batgirl. Like, I knew she wasn't the first Batgirl when I was reading her first stories and really falling in love with her. I mean, like I knew Barbara had been there and I'd seen Barbara in the role in other stories at that point. I'd read her in that role and I liked her fine, but she was just Oracle to me. And so there just wasn't, it wasn't crowded to me the way that it probably is to someone else, like someone else who looks at Cass and they maybe feel like she took a role from someone else, but it just wasn't like that for me because to me the role was wide open because Barbara was already Oracle. And I just love Cass. I love Cass deeply into my bones. She matters to me. Um, probably the way a lot of those people who get violent about Barbara do. So I don't know. Maybe it's some weird cocktail of a Batgirl plus whoever's behind that mask, whoever you first discover her as. It's really potent. You know, you cling to it. I mean, as a woman, I wonder if it's a little bit the same way some people react to Batman. And the difference is Batman is almost never not Bruce Wayne. I mean, very famously, what's his name? Azrael or whatever. And then in my most famous, I thought I would hate Dick Grayson as Batman, and it's some of my favorite Batman stories. Black Mirror is one of my favorite Batman books, which has Dick in the cowl, not Bruce. So you never know what you're gonna like. I try to bring that to a lot of books, including Birds of Prey, when I was making that really weird cast. And I was like, let's see what happens. Let's bang some new things together and see what we get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I started off Babs as Batgirl because Batgirl Year One was really, I think, my first love story with Barbara, even though I had seen her in the animated series. And so it was always Barbara as Batgirl. And then I really started to appreciate her as Oracle. And when Stephanie Brown came in as
Hmm.
Batgirl, she was the one who really took on. So I would say Stephanie Brown, very shockingly, is my favorite Batgirl, but Barbara
That's
Gordon's my
funny. Yeah,
favorite. Yeah, my favorite character.
that's interesting.
As a quick
Uh,
diagnostic test. Oh, did you have something else to say?
no, 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 go ahead.
Oh, a quick diagnostic. True or false? Batman is a jerk.
Yes, true.
Okay.
Uh,
Just want to see where you fell.
I do think he's a jerk. I think that's okay. I think in order to be you can't be Batman and also be like, and you know what else? He's also the nicest guy I know. No, those don't go together. Those aren't
Yeah.
a thing. I don't like it when his Batman is a dick leans too far over into he's abusing the Bat family. Like I think that some stories it works really well and it's excavated beautifully and it feels like a really potent, true thing to talk about, like the sort of trauma and the violence and the way you're built to be able to do something like this and how much that gosh, separates you from people, but also how important it is to have those allies. Like, I think they're some of the most powerful stories deal with that kind of stuff, but I also think those are probably some of the ones that have been the most badly handled in
Mm.
like, larger stories where we're seeing him behave in a way that's just too far for what we all know we need that character core to be, which is that he's still good above all else. Like no matter how much dickish energy there is there, he's still a great hero and one that has inspired an entire family around him. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for falling on the right side, though, I will say. And then final question, just as the setup, but what's your history with writing and how did you quote unquote break into the comic writing biz?
So I always, pretty much since I was little, I always wanted to write. I used to write I used to not just write, but quote unquote publish by like making physical books, like including I made this story about these mermaid sisters when I was quite little, and I made them into these construction paper books, and each sister had a different co color coded book, and they had like a die cut cover with a drawing of a mermaid inside. I mean, I was making die cut covers. I was like 8. So I was very into not just writing, but publishing, like creating an object. I think that was part of it. But I'm very slow. It takes me a long time to get to things. And my editors can attest to this. So I was a bit slow in figuring out how to be in comics and all that stuff, despite I did go to school to study it. I went to SCAD. I graduated from SCAD to study comics, and I worked on, I was just always working on writing while I was doing other jobs. I eventually published a bunch of poetry, some short fiction, a couple novels, and I was also writing reviews and sort of, I guess you'd call them op-eds, like essays, under She Has No Head for Comics Should Be Good. And eventually I knocked on enough doors that somebody let me write something. And so Gem and the Holograms, that was the first thing published in 2015, but my graphic novel Heart in a Box with artist Meredith McLaren, that actually we'd been working on that for like a year. It's just because it was a whole graphic novel and it was this whole slow process that Gem actually beat it to publication. Um, but yeah, that was in, gosh, 2015 was Gem, so a little over 10 years
Yeah,
since breaking in. Yeah.
lovely. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's going pretty well.
Yeah, I should think so, being on the opposite side. Yeah. I have two sort of industry questions, and then of course we'll get into the main event, which is talking about your run on Birds of Prey. But I'm always interested speaking with female creators, and you, I think, are really unique in the fact that you've written for Marvel, DC, IDW, Archie, which is a nice little ring composition for you because I know you did some Sabrina work, and
Hmm.
then Boom. And I wondered if you would say that the cultures of those companies are all drastically different from one another, or do you think they're more similar than people on the outside like me would think?
I think they're pretty similar. I think they're pretty similar. I mean, you have to remember that except for Marvel, my interaction with all of these companies so far, even DC, because I was going to go to a summit last year, but I had an injured knee, I wasn't able to
Yeah.
go. But, most of them, my interactions are via email. So, it's me communicating with my editor. So, I think what editor you're working with completely can drive your experience at whatever publisher you're with. But I got to be honest with you, I don't know if it's just luck or if this is just the balance of what's out there. My experience has been at most of these companies, there's just people trying to make good comic books. Like, it's really just people trying their best under insane deadlines because publishing is known for having such a slow schedule. But I don't know where comics got screwed on that because comics has the most breakneck schedule. It's so intense. So, I think it's just people trying to put out good books and not set anything on fire at the same time. And I found that across the board. I will say that Absolute Wonder Woman and to a similar but lesser degree, Birds of Prey have been two of the best experiences I've ever had working in comics, which I think says very good things about DC Comics on multiple levels. But I will admit that, Absolute Wonder Woman is certainly a very specific opportunity that, you know, that's credit where credit's due to DC, but I don't want to. It is a very unique experience to get to be part of a big relaunch like that, where, so long as you're coordinating with everyone, you've got a lot of freedom to set those rules in that tone. That tends to be a different experience, although I've not gotten to do that very much until now. So it's been incredible.
Lovely. And have you seen the environment within the comics industry change, whether positive or negative, for your 10 years for female creators? I was
Um,
looking, I reread your entire run in 3 days, and it was interesting because, of course, at the end of the issues, you see upcoming or new issues, and I'm just looking at, all these male names and just very few female creators. And I just wonder,
yeah.
man, it has it changed at all?
So I want to say that for characters, yes, because, a little over 10 years ago, it's more like 13 years ago or whatever, but I was writing that Comics Should Be Good column and it was called She Has No Head. It was about women in comics and that covered as broad or as tight as you'd like it to be. Sometimes I was just talking about books with female characters in them, and sometimes I was talking about, actual issues. Um, and the no I would really struggle. That was a weekly column, and I would really struggle to find current stuff to talk about. I mean, I could certainly go back into the archives and find a lot of older stuff, but it was very hard to find things that I liked or that had something interesting to say. And I don't think you'd have that problem today. I think there is a wealth of really great female character material out there. It doesn't always last because we're in that really rough period where there's a lot of renumbering, and if something doesn't take off like wildfire in 5 issues, then it gets canceled, and maybe you'll get another take in a year. So I'm not saying it's all better or it's some great thing, but like, Storm had an incredible comic this year alongside Magic, alongside Jean Grey, alongside She-Hulk, alongside Absolute Wonder Woman, alongside Birds of Prey, alongside Poison Ivy. Like, it's a lot of mainstream stuff. Um, so I think in that respect, I see real progress. Um, on the creator side, it's harder to say. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me to have a I know I should have a good insider's view, but it's one of those things where you're a little too close to it. Um, like I feel like a lot of women I know are doing well, but also I feel like women that I think are really interesting like sort of fall off the map and disappear. And I'm sure that's happening to male creators too. There's so many of them. It's harder for me to be aware of that or to notice that when that happens. So I don't know that it's that much better for creators. I feel like it's obviously been very good to me, which I feel a little bad about. And I see real talent around me, but yeah, I mean, we're pretty far from any kind of. I mean, because I see those too, where they're like the female creators this month, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can count it on one hand, that seems like that's a problem.
Yeah.
But it's also a weird thing to be too close to because first of all, let's talk about Absolute Wonder Woman. That's a non-binary creator, female writer, female colorist, female letterer, uh, non-binary and male editors, but it's a really diverse team in a lot of respects, which makes you feel good. But, then you look around and you see, oh, well, that's not happening everywhere, right? I mean, even on my Birds of Prey book, when Jordy moved to Absolute Wonder Woman for coloring, other than Jessica, my editor and I think Sophie drew an issue. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much just me. And so then you're like, wait a minute, what's happening? And like we've had a couple ideas. We'd love to get a woman on Absolute Wonder Woman, and it can be difficult with schedules. And, that's a very specific book that only certain artists fit for. But yeah, it doesn't feel great. I don't know. Like, and I feel like some real culpability in that. Like, I don't know what I was supposed to do about it, but it also feels like I haven't done anything about it other than selfishly forward my own career. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
not that that's selfish, but, you know, what have I done other than just supporting comics? Like, it feels lacking. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's great that you're like thinking about how could I do more, but I also think like the top, right? It comes a lot from them and how are they
Sure.
looking for new people and reaching out. And one of the ads in one of yours, I don't know, is about Nicole Maine. I was like, oh yeah, Nicole Maine,
Yeah.
who did Dreamer. And I feel like I don't even know how that
Yeah.
was received afterwards, but that was
Yeah.
amazing to have a trans woman writing
Yeah.
something. So I'll just, I think, always remember a San Diego Comic Con that I went to a panel. I think it was maybe a Bat Group panel or a DC panel, and the only woman was Gail Simone.
Yeah.
So as long as it's better than that, and I think it does get better, it's just like incrementally so. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I also think that, something people maybe just aren't aware of, like, there's just not a lot of money in comics.
Mm,
And in some ways, that protects a lot of the integrity of it, in the sense that, whatever. I was watching a documentary the other day, and the questioner, the guy running the documentary, asked the guy, why did you get it? And it was old. It was like old footage. It was like the 80s or something. And the question was something about, well, why'd you get into it? To make movies or to make money? And the guy's like, to make money. And I just thought, nobody's getting into comics to do that. Nobody's like, yes, I'm gonna strike it rich. No, they're getting into it because they love comics. By the same token, it can be really hard to turn that into a career
Mm,
and not just something you tried. Because if your comic doesn't hit, it's not like I don't know, like and even if you get a small hit, there's just not enough money to like be like, okay, I'm going to invest that money in making more comics, or okay, I'm going to take 6 months off with this money and make more comics. Like, so you just have to have a really, I don't know, a really big success in order to keep going, I guess. And movies and television, it feels like the money is so much better. Yeah, maybe you can make a living by writing a few episodes of animation a year and a pilot that maybe gets optioned or whatever. Like I just think there aren't as many ways for that to become lucrative. And so it's a little bit harder even to like make a mark. And someone like Nicole Maines maybe does that, but then is like, well, it didn't really work. I can't commit all of my creative energy to this thing that didn't take off. So then, you go back to the things that you know are working. And I think that probably happens to a lot of creators who aren't able to find success more quickly
mhm.
because it's just not that lucrative until you're able to do that, until you're able to maximize that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, now we'll get into it with Birds of Prey.
Oh dear.
How did how did this project come about? And as a sub question, what research did you do to prepare for writing this?
So I was sort of separating from Marvel, which just means that my exclusive was ending. And DC had been talking to me for a while, and we'd been wanting to work something out. And I'd particularly been talking to Ben Abernathy for a while, and we'd been wanting to do something. And he was like, "Well, so are you going to come over? What are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, what am I allowed to do?" And he was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I mean, I want to do Birds of Prey." And he was like, "Done." And I was like, "Seriously?" And he was like, "Yeah, we were looking to make a Birds of Prey book. You'd be a great fit. Like, let's talk about it." So that was just how it happened. And then I know people don't really want to believe this, but he just completely got out of my way.
Mm,
I think in fairness to him, I turned in a really detailed, thought out pitch for that first arc. And once we knew we were getting Jordy and Leo, I mean, everyone knew it was going to look spectacular. Um, and so even when I was like, yeah, I want Zealot on the team, and he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes. So yeah, I mean, they just let me do it. I know everyone wants to say Harley was required. Nobody told me to put Harley on the team. Not a single person told me to do or not do anything on that first pitch. Later, maybe we could say that there was more yes and no's, but initially it was very free. And I mean, Ben definitely did not know how I was going to write Barda. Because when I turned in the first script, he was like, wow, he's like, I didn't know this is what your Barda was going to sound like. He's like, the dynamic between her and Cass is incredible. I was like, thank you. I was like, I thought it might work, but I wasn't quite sure. So I'm glad to see that it's like coming together. Um, yeah. And so then we were off and running. Um,
and then research. What did you do? I
Oh, the
imagine that.
research.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read all the Birds of Prey. I'd read them all long ago. So
Okay.
it was more about going back and rereading some and thinking about the stuff that I liked and the characters, the dynamics that I liked. But I sort of told you off air, like, I mean, part of the reread spurned part of my desire to mix it up a little bit more because these Barbara and Dinah in particular, they've had a lot of time to like deal with this dynamic. Like it's been really beautifully excavated. I mean, like sometimes I don't love the stories, but mostly it's been like a really cool exploration of their relationship. And so if I didn't want to tear it to shreds, which I didn't want to, like I really had to think about what can I add to this? What can I say? What do we want to talk about here? And that was partly how I got there to bringing Barbara on later was creating some tension about why she wasn't there initially and then like some residual feelings that led to a little bit of a push and pull between them for leadership later on because I thought those were interesting things. But again, that's been dealt with. Like we've seen those stories already. So, one of the things I think you look at when you're trying to figure out how to do a project like this, or any project probably, is like is this going to be fun? Do I have something to say? Is there something I can bring to this that other people haven't already done or that other people can't? And, those answers aren't always that you're some beautiful snowflake that has some perfect take that nobody else will have, but you still are aiming for that. You're still aiming for what can I say and do here that maybe hasn't completely been done before. And that was certainly part of my impetus for mixing up the cast and bringing Barbara on more slowly as a sort of reveal of something else afoot. I think this probably is far afield of your actual question, but I mean, I think if we're talking about regrets down the line, it's that even though we got to 28, which is a very long run for comics these days, I, if we'd gone longer, I was trying to develop things long term to bring them back. I mean, that's to me, that's the hardest thing in comics these days is that building that rogues gallery. One of the reasons Batman is the most popular character in comics is because he has an incredible rogues gallery. He has an incredible city that feels like a character in and of itself. And then he has an incredible extended cast, if you want to get into that too. And it's very hard to do with other characters. And it's particularly hard to do with characters these days because most of the time things get disassembled after 5 issues and they have to start again. So, Maya and the portal and that stuff, the stuff with Velvet Tiger, all that's, I mean, we definitely would have come back to that. The intention is to build these long grudge relationships that have roots to them, right? Um, but I felt, and I think we all agree, that after the portal, we needed a break from Maya and from all of that. And so I did my best to do that while also keeping Sulla on the board so that we could hopefully go back to that and it would really resonate and make sense. But, we didn't ever get back to it because I was trying to build some other things too. On that same tip, like the Shadow Army, I wouldn't have built that new team specifically designed to fight the birds of prey if I knew we were going to get
Mm-hmm.
canceled by 28. But also, the whole entire reason, well, not the whole reason for the build of the Shadow Army, but I couldn't have Calculator. I'd asked for Calculator. I
Okay.
couldn't have Calculator. So that's how we get Damon Prime, um, building that team around him. And that's fine. I think it would have worked better if we weren't getting canceled because then Shadow Army can keep coming back and keep being a problem. And become enough of a rogues gallery for them character that other creators want to pick up on it later because I really think that's your goal at this point is tell these the best stories that you can, move the ball along and create these characters that people are compelled by and that they want to see interact again on the page. And but you need a long run to do that with multiple. I mean, we did it pretty well and we still struggled with it. So, it's a tricky thing.
Yeah. Um, So connected to that with because one of the shocking things, something that I didn't like, but I say this with respect because obviously I think that did we talk about it on air or off air? That you don't want your book to be boring. You want people to talk about it. And I
Yeah.
didn't like this thought that Barbara Gordon has somehow either directly or indirectly murdered someone. And I was like, what the heck is
Yeah.
this? I hope we get there. And so I'm super disappointed that we don't get there. Is that
Yeah.
something you would like to share about, or like, no, in
Well,
case
no,
something
I'm
else
happy to
happens?
say
Okay,
I
okay,
well, Barbara never murders anybody. I mean,
okay,
if
okay,
if she was involved in Velvet Tiger's death, it's going to be something went wrong, some
okay,
indirect thing. It's definitely not Barbara killing someone.
okay, okay.
I think it's more something went wrong. But you got to remember, they're getting that story from
Correct.
Sulla. And
Right.
even with Sulla trying to be like, listen, my sister's crazy and trapped me in a portal and you guys saved me and I don't really have a grudge against you. That's the story I was still told and believed my whole life was that Batgirl killed my mom.
Yeah.
So, and of course you're hearing it from the villains. So of course that's what you're going to hear. So no, Barbara,
Okay.
yeah, definitely not. And yes, I would have loved to get there and tell that story. Those are those longer line hooks that you hope you're setting up, that really the first time in my life I've ever gotten to do that effectively and feel confident that I'm going to be able to pay those hooks off is Absolute Wonder Woman. And it's frustrating. We tried to do it in Birds of Prey, but I mean, I've already just talked about the
Right.
multiple ways in which that failed. Like, I mean, I think it was on the process to working. But yeah, I mean, we probably have to get to 50 issues in
Mm,
order to have the Maya stuff come back and the Velvet Tiger stuff come back and all that stuff. And like, only a very few writers get to plan that far out these days. And honestly, I didn't even, well, I wanted that to be true. I didn't approach it that way. Like, I came in with a killer first arc and then loose ideas about what I thought these other arcs could be. And then the book sort of partially fell apart. We lost Ben, the editor who'd brought it all together. I lost Leo. Jordy fortunately stayed with me until, I mean, thank God she stayed on that portal arc because, we were doing, so here we are. We're in our second or third arc, depending on how you want to call it, because there's a short sort of two-parter
right.
between those two, right?
Hmm.
So we're headed into this. We've lost Leo. The arc that I've planned for it is this crazy portal jumping arc that Leo was probably right to leave. I mean, he hadn't seen it yet, so that's not why he left. But what I know is it was going to be incredibly tough on him because it's never a kind of arc I would have written for just an any day writer. I just knew he was capable of pushing on his style and world building stuff that he could handle all those portal switches. But then we lost him and we were in sort of chaos and we lost Ben. And so now I'm sort of on the fly trying to figure out like there's no way we can get someone of his level that can handle this story. I was like, so we either have to scrap the story, which we were quickly running out of time to do that, to come up with a new story, or I had the idea, which is an idea I really like and stand by, of bringing in different artists, different cool artists to handle each arc. And I figured, and I was right, that we could get better artists if for shorter stays who didn't need as much lead time to be able to do one issue. And I think for the most part, it really worked. I think, especially in trade, it reads really fun with these changes in style. But I don't know, most of the feedback, people sort of didn't get it. It was disconcerting for them. And then they sort of felt the artists on the book are always changing, even though that wasn't the case. We've had really regular artists. We had one sub on Leo, which I have a regret about that as well. Not for the artist, which I thought was great, but in my own failing. Then we had Javier for the two-parter. Then we had this switching portal arc, and then it was Sammy. And it's pretty much been Sammy except for when it was Juan to spell Sammy. So I don't know. I think we got sort of a really bad rap there.
Mm.
It's a pretty like we did this one thing where we had a problem and we decided to lean into it instead of trying to run away from it and mixed results. But it's hard for me to not like it when I got to do the Birds of Prey in a cartoon world drawn by Sophie Campbell. Like to me, that's worth almost anything. I also think that Javier Fernandez dinosaur issue is one of the most beautiful books he's ever drawn. Like, so I don't have a lot of I liked it. I think they were flawed experiments, but I think together they were an interesting whole. But I don't know. It's hard. I
Yeah.
understand that people felt unstuck by it reading it month to month, like it confused them. But if only they knew how hard it was, maybe they would feel better.
Well, hopefully they
You should
listen
have
to the show so that they know
you should
it's
have Jessica's brain wanted to explode. When I told her, I was like, listen, I haven't even told you the real problem. And she's like, wait, having five different artists isn't the real problem? I was like, no, the real problem is we can't change the artists at the end every issue.
mm,
Otherwise, every cliffhanger is the same cliffhanger of them jumping through the portal. And that's not a good cliffhanger. And I know you know that. And she's like, I hadn't thought about that. And I was like, so what that means is the art's going to have to jump mid book sometimes. And she goes, Kelly, people are going to be so upset. And I was like, she's like, also our heads are going to explode. I was like, definitely to both of those. But I mean, I was right. Like, you can't have five cliffhangers be jumping into portals. It doesn't work.
yeah.
So, we had a couple that were jumping into portals, and then we had a couple that were other things. Um, but I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I
Sometimes you
obviously
gotta try shit.
yes, I can't speak for all of humanity. I am a bit shocked that people didn't receive that arc well. I actually thought that was all intentional. So everything you just said like blew my mind that this was unintentional. As someone who actually does not like artists to switch within an arc, I like it to be consistent. I liked that because it was clear to me we're in a different type of world. It should be reflective artistically.
I love
So
it.
I really appreciated it. I really like Sophie's art. I was reading her Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle run,
Mhm.
and that was just super fun and cute, anyways. Even though the rabbits were insane, like Watership Down style, but to see like little baby Barda. So on my part, and I'll mention him like Donovan, like the people that I surround myself with really appreciated that, and I feel like it
Well,
landed. Just
I
just to give
hope,
you props and the
thank
artists
you
as
so
well.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I do sort of hope it's gonna hold up over time for people. Like people who encounter it as a trade, especially, are gonna like see it all as one and like get it better. But it does go to my belief, which we talked about a little bit before, that like I think if you're really engaging with the material and like month to month, you're staying on top of it like the way you do because you're reviewing the book. I do feel like we did a good job of explaining it and we were very consistent in how we executed it. Like there was a very high level of execution there. I just think I understand that if you weren't paying as much attention, it felt chaotic, you know? So fair enough. Like again, sometimes you're just trying these things. And I also have to say that, you know, I I guess I have regret. I have regret if playing with things and trying things on Birds of Prey, if that ended up sinking us
Mm.
faster, then I have regret. But I do feel like it was exactly the place to try some of these things. Like it's comics. I did an interview a long time ago, that talked about the formula being your friend. And that quote gets around a lot with the last part dropped off, which is until it isn't, because the formula is there to help you get through an incredible schedule and to remind you that this issue has to have rising and falling action. Ideally, if it continues, it needs a good cliffhanger. It needs like character dynamics and things for people to grab onto. It has to have all these formulaic elements in order to be a good read as a sitting and worth your money. And then also there's that thing we talked about also where it also has to fit in as a perfect little puzzle piece into a larger narrative. So it's helpful when you're trying to address all those things to have a formula. It is your friend. It's there to remind you. But if you're just sticking to the formula, you're not trying anything new. You're not pushing on any boundaries. You're not playing with the form. You're not pushing on the characters. So I do think there's a good reason to play with those things because this medium is incredibly flexible and cool. And we have advantages that a lot of other mediums don't. And yes, maybe it's harder to play with those things on like a corporate ensemble superhero comic, but I don't know. I think it's a little more interesting to try it. I was lucky to have really great artists that I could play with. And that goes back to my complaint about myself on arc one. I know a lot of people really had trouble with that art shift,
Mm.
from Leo to, oh my God, I don't have his name in front of me. Crap. I'm so sorry. I apologize. He did such great work, but it was really exaggerated in form and style. And the idea was that's Megara's POV. And I just never got it on the page
Mm.
clear enough to help people understand. And I don't know that that would have made them like it better, but I do think it would have made them understand more what we were trying to say. Like, for example, that issue, if you go back and reread it, has no Diana or has no Dinah captions, which had been standard throughout until that point. And that's because we're not in Dinah's perspective. We're not in a general perspective anymore. We're with Megara. We're seeing inside Megara. We're seeing what Megara perceives these other characters to be. And that's my failing. And I particularly feel like I let down the artist because people had a very visceral reaction coming from Leo's art to his. And I didn't protect him enough, not on social media or whatever, but within the story. I didn't find a way to make it clear enough that that's what was happening, which might have protected him a little bit. And I'm very sorry I don't have his name. I'll try to find it while I'm talking to
Yeah,
you.
I'm sorry I don't have it on tap too, though I do know specifically which issue you're talking about. Yeah. Do you have a favorite arc in your run?
It's one for me.
Okay.
I think I have a lot of love for the Portal arc as well because of all the things we just talked
Mm.
about, but I don't think all the pieces work as well as I'd like them to. I also Javier and David doing those two issues, the fashiony two issues with Vixen. I thought those were very fun and pretty. But the first arc with Leo, that's definitely that first issue is like, hey, this is what we're about. This is what we want to do. Like, I think if Leo had been able to stay on, it probably would have stayed more in that realm a little bit. I don't know.
Do you feel like there's something like some through line or theme that ties all of your arcs together?
I I mean, I think family broadly, of course, but I that's a bit lazy because I think that's pretty much always true of Birds of Prey. I think specifically Dinah and Sin is the most obvious through line. What's happening with Sin and Megara? I mean, we pick that up in pretty much every issue. Like sometimes it's very small, sometimes it's larger. We were really trying to develop that. I was trying my best in the time we had to develop Sin into a character that I felt could stand on her own. I know there are a few people out there that don't like the Megara possession and feel like Sin should have been something different. I guess I just felt like the things Sin was set up to be previously, we just had so much of that already, including we recently had a Red Canary, that young woman, Sierra something, who I initially panicked because I was working on the Birds of Prey pitch and I saw this character. I was like, oh my God, is that Sin? Like, oh no. So I think that maybe keeping her more similar to all those characters, the sort of martial arts based Green Arrow and Black Canary characters, maybe that's better. But I felt like she needed something to break out and like be able to be on her own, give herself her own story that was going to be separate from martial artists across the world, evil organizations want me. I thought it was a really interesting angle to give her. And we didn't take away any of her martial arts skills. I do think there's a failing in the book, which we can talk about later for other reasons, where there wasn't enough of that stuff. And so maybe it would have helped to show more of that off too. Um, but I thought listen, I'm biased. I love them. I love Sin and Megara. I love how much Megara fell in love with her and like now really just wants to be with Sin as opposed to I want to see the world. It's like I think it's sort of beautiful. I would love for her to be established enough to be able to stand on her own, but I don't think I don't think I really got there because I can't imagine someone other than me picking her up right now. So I feel like that's a little bit of a failure despite my efforts. So I don't know.
So the cast, you mainly keep consistent with Babs, Dinah, Cass, Bart, and Sin, but there are slight switches, I would say more or less every arc. What
Hmm.
went into making the decisions about who left and who stayed? And I can scratch the other one because you kind of told me that there weren't really any directives. But yeah, I mean, any characters that you wanted to have but didn't have the chance to. And you said later on you were maybe given some yeses and nos. Were there any ones that you really wanted but were told, no, you can't do that?
Yeah, so I was definitely told I couldn't have Huntress,
Oh,
which
wow.
I mean
Oh, yeah.
I didn't ask for her from the beginning. My plan was she would have come on around 14 when we did that, when Jordy left the book and Sammy came on, and we were doing that undercover arc with the Amazons. I wanted her to come on in that arc. And I got to be honest, um, I, I I don't Huntress is not my favorite character. If she was, she would have been there from day one. She's not. But again, it comes more down to she's had all these stories with these characters, and I'm just looking to bang some new characters into each other and see what we get. And sometimes we get magic, like with Barda and Cass. But I did want her there. I wanted her there partially because I feel like that, yeah, you got to see Huntress in a Birds of Prey run. Like, I don't think she has to be in every issue. She wasn't there from the beginning. She came on in Gail's run, and Gail did amazing work with her. So I feel like she's an important part of it, but I do not agree with the idea that it's not Birds of Prey unless she's not there. Like that doesn't square for me, and I know that a lot of people wanted to yell at me that that was true, but I'll be honest with you. In my experience, if you say, okay, now we have Huntress, then they go, okay, now, and then they just want to add it. And like, you can't, there's no stopping them. They're like, oh, we'll now get, what's her name?
Misfit.
Well, Misfit is one,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah,
Lady
yeah. Lady
Blackhawk
Blackhawk.
is the one
Yeah,
I would hear from first.
yeah.
That's the one that would come after Huntress. And I was like, I'm sorry, if you guys want to read that story, just go back and read the beautiful stories Gail already made for you. Like, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
it's
make
true.
something
Yeah.
else here. But I can't keep apologizing for that. Like, I'm sorry it's not exactly what you guys want it to be, but maybe you'd like this one too if you gave it a chance. I don't know. But I did write myself into my own problem, which is Barda and Cass were magic from the jump, and everyone, including me, was super attached to them. I mean, it was the number one thing I was hearing, other than how great the art were and how gorgeous the coloring was. Um, except for for the few people that were complaining that it made them feel like their eyes were blurry, to which I said, "You're reading the comics wrong. It's deliberately off register. Like, stop trying to make it a straight line. That's never going to work." Anyway, I think Barda is a problem. Barda is a problem. I mean, I wanted her there all the time. I love her. I think she's fantastic. And I think I found a great way to build her into that world. And I think I will break my own arm patting myself on the back that I feel like she has way more fans now than when I started 2 years ago. I know that not everyone agrees with the way I write her. It's how I see it. I don't know what to say. I think I'm being very true to it. Um, I think Barta doesn't assimilate, so why would she change? She should be weird and other. That's what she is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But she shouldn't like, oh, she's been on this planet for 50 years, so she would have assimilated. No, she's not interested in assimilating to us. She's better than us. She knows it. She walks around in it. She's not going to change. So that's how I come at her. But I had this idea. I really didn't know how it was going to happen on the page. I just felt like I knew Cass and Barter really well as characters. I felt like they were completely different, but they had weird overlapping, really fun things that I thought might make them really interesting together. They're these incredibly gifted, incredibly violent characters that come from an incredibly dark place of evil people trying to make them evil. And they're like, nah, I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna be the biggest hero you've ever seen. They come to it a little differently and they approach it differently, but they do. They have this same heart inside their tiny and giant bodies. And I love that about them. And it made it really easy to connect them. I could just instantly see how Barta would respect Cass and how they would just become sort of a weird, unlikely, odd couple. And they were a total joy to write. And there was no way I wanted to stop doing that. And Barta completely fucked up my ability to tell street level spy stories that I sometimes wanted to tell. I would have liked to see Cass, Sin, and Dinah doing more badass martial arts stuff. And we just didn't have the room for it because a lot of the stories didn't work that way. Um, with Barda on the board, it just changes what you can and should do. And so I had to like think around it a lot. And I worry that it controlled the book too much. My trying to adjust to the kind of threats we need and should be addressing with these characters. But I also can't say I would do anything different because I think Barda and Cass were a star of the book and they really made it sing. They brought a lot of heart to it. and some of the best violence, uh, of course. But yeah, when I look back, I definitely thought we were going to do more slinking around and, Dinah kicking people in their faces. But I had to use more canary cries because when you're dealing with people who can fight Barda, then yeah, Dinah's got to bring her biggest assets. So I think it's interesting how a choice like that, just from the very beginning, can end up sort of controlling how things go a little bit. Um, but I also think it led us to some of the most fun things we did and the choices we made. So yeah, I don't really regret it. I mean, the number one thing people asked me to do when they found out that this book was over was do a Barda and Cass book. And like that feels, yeah, yeah, how can you regret that, right? If that's what people come away with, they'd like to see, like, how is that not just a, hey, we did it. Hey, we made a new thing people are excited about. Um, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I want that. I know a lot of other people that talk to me. They're like, "Hey, we need this buddy cop, Cass and
Yeah.
Barda book." I
Yeah.
feel like you've got some, clout now because of all of this stuff that's you
Yeah.
got this book, Absolute Wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, get just
Maybe I
ask.
can
Do you
figure it
see
out. Yeah, maybe I can figure it
a
out. All
limited
right. I'll
series, six
I'll go
issues,
I'll go to Rob hat in hand about a very important mission that only Small Bad and Big Barda can solve. Yeah.
one
It
hundred
does
percent.
sound fun. It does sound so fun. I
Yeah,
just I just love those girls so much. But yeah, I it is they're not I do think they work better in a team though than just as a duo because the duo is great for like short bits, but I if you don't have other characters for Barda to bounce off of, I worry it's just Barda talking and Cass moving. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you don't like one of the big struggles I had with Cass in this book was that I found a lot of great ways to highlight her, I thought, that did not force her to give soliloquies, particularly in the undercover arc where she's really able to like keep her own counsel and she doesn't have. But as we were going, I was trying to show how smart Cass is, what a great leader she is, how many good ideas she has, and that if she's with the right team who respects her and respects her point of view, that she can take this leadership role. And she was responsible for a lot of the good ideas that came. But you have to talk to people to express those ideas. And so I did sometimes find myself roped into situations where I had her talking more than I wanted her to. We tried to really trim it down, but I also think there's a disconnect for me personally on Cass's voice. Um, like I feel like her internal voice, she's super smart and she's now well read. So it shouldn't be held back how she thinks or the words she's using. It should just be that she chooses not to speak a lot. It's not her primary way that she wants to communicate with people. She can do it. She can do it absolutely fine. It's just not the way that feels natural to her. So I always want her internal to be, it still should be clipped and short because she's not like an effusive. That's just not how she is. But yeah, I struggled when she had to talk too much. There were times when I was like, fuck, how do I can't, there's no other way to get her to tell everyone her idea than her just saying it? I mean, like we found a clever way around it in one, of course, but you
yeah.
can't keep doing that, especially when I mean, in that case, we were literally able to do that because Ben gave us 3 extra pages because I went begging. I was like, listen, I have this really good idea, but I need 2 or 3 pages to execute it. He's like, you can have it. And I was like, excellent. But you can't do that every book. They're not going to let you do that every issue. So I would say the other thing with rolling characters on and off, for arc one, we super needed Harley. I know people
Mm.
don't like to see her in a Birds of Prey book, but I thought for levity reasons, we totally needed her. I was right. She was necessary on that page. Barda was some levity, but she's such a strange bird, it's a little off how she jokes about things. She's not joking, she's just saying it. It's just funny to the rest of us. Whereas Harley is actively like trying to play a role. But The rolling characters on and off came from me wanting to feature different characters, me wanting to bang different characters together, me wanting to show people like I love Grace Choi and Onyx, and they're like never in any books. And so part of that's me just wanting to show people and remind people these characters are great. But I confess it was very frustrating because, we brought Vixen in. She came in on issue 7 and she was there through 13. And I thought I gave her like really she had the juiciest role. She saved the day. She had a whole situation where she was disconnected from her power and it was freaking her out and she was panicking about it, but then she like focused up and found it and saved the day, saved Barbara, did everything. And all I could see was people complaining.
Mhm.
Vixen didn't do anything. Vixen didn't do anything. I was like, what are you talking about? I elbowed everybody else out of the way to make sure she got a juicy bit because I knew she'd be rolling off after 14. So I wanted to make sure we showed her fashion world. We did all of that and people didn't respond to it. So I felt very conflicted. Like here I am trying to roll these characters on and off and like really highlight them and it's not working? Question mark? I don't know. So it was frustrating. Um, but it mostly just comes from loving those characters. Grace Choi, Onyx, Vixen, they never get enough shine and I just
Yeah.
want to play with them,
Yeah, I miss Onyx. I really liked Orpheus Rising, which happened early 2000s, I
Mm,
think. And then, Orpheus was appearing in War Games. And
mm.
then, Onyx was in there. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
whenever I see
Yeah.
Onyx, I'm like, oh, look, she's still alive. She's still doing okay.
She showed up in Teenie Howard's Catwoman too. Really great art on
Oh,
that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Sexy, pretty sexy Onyx over there.
There were three things that I thought of as you were talking about Cassandra. One was that was actually one of my favorite moments of her narrating more so internally than externally about the fish and just how Harley Quinn's weirdness and not doing
Yeah.
what you would expect her to do is actually going to be very helpful. And then everyone was like, "That you're a terrible storyteller. You have to use more words." So I really appreciated that. Number
Thank you.
two, you made me feel very uncomfortable with the Bird Undercover arc because in no way did I ever want to like feel any sort of attraction or think that Cassandra Cain was attractive. But when she walked in as just like a complete badass with that white suit, I was like, "Who the heck is this?" So shame on you for doing that.
I
Um,
apologize.
and I can't remember. Oh, the third one is yeah, your bias really showed through, I think, in this entire run with how much you loved Cass. There
Yeah.
were just definitely moments that, she was poking through, having conversations, I think, with Sin, giving her uplifting talk and being a mentor to her and Sella.
Yeah.
And I think at one point I was trying to find this before so I could have the evidence. I think it must have been Bird Undercover that, everyone was really upset about her being missing. And then someone said something along the lines of Cass is everyone's favorite. And
Yeah.
I remember like, okay. So it was very clear to me where your loyalties
It's
lay.
true that I'm biased, but also if you were hanging out with all those characters, wouldn't Cass be your favorite character? She never causes drama. She's silent and deadly. She can get almost anything done. She's incredibly loyal. You know she'd come for you in a heartbeat if you were in trouble. She's incredibly trustworthy. I mean, listen, I set it up from the go. I mean, isn't it in issue 1 when Green Arrow's like, listen, who's absolutely deadly, but can you trust completely? And then it's smash cut into seeing Cascade
Yeah.
and like, oh, I guess I'll help her out. Like, I just think that's who Cass is. Cass is, listen, she's the closest thing to Batman we've got, and then she's not a dick, which
Yeah.
is a bonus. So
Yeah.
she may not have the money and like the connections the same way, but she's an incredible bat. And I just think, you'd love Barda, but Barda would be on your last nerve a lot of the time. Dinah and Oracle are your boss, and Sin is just trying to figure things out. I mean, Cass is she's a rock, man. But I'm glad you picked up on the stuff with Sin because I was trying to play that in really well. We never quite got there, but I got there with Dinah saying it outright on the page about
Mhm.
Cass and Barda, but we hinted at it a couple times in a more indirect way that it's very similar to Sin. Sin, Barda, and Cass all have this. you're powerful and we want to manipulate you to our evil ends. And they're pure hero, those guys. And so they end up on the side of the good guys. And it's beautiful. And I thought it was sort of beautiful that Dinah and Oracle end up running this team of these three weirdos who were supposed to be supervillains, and instead they're your absolutely badass squad of heroes. I love it. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful that they found each other, you know?
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Zealot you mentioned, and she was the one I was the least familiar with. Once I saw her, maybe issue one or when it was announced, I was like trying to do as much as I could. What went into that particular choice, and what did you want readers most to understand about her and learn of
Well,
her
so
from your
I'm
run?
I partly I wanted people to remember that the Wildstorm characters are out there and that they're awesome. I am a very big fan of Zealot. I mean, going all the way back to the Image 90s heyday. She's awesome. She's especially awesome when you know like in so you know the way Wildstorm gets folded into DC is I think a little complicated for us
Mm.
all. Nobody I think really fully gets it and understands it, and that's probably a problem that's holding the Wildstorm characters back. But if you go all the way back to Wildstorm before it was folded in, I mean, Zealot is basically Wonder Woman, as if Wonder Woman created the Amazons, but then the Amazons went evil and she had to break away from them. So Zealot created or was part of creating the Coda, which are the elite female assassins in the Wildstorm world, but they go bad and they become assassins instead of people doing good things. And so Zealot leaves them and becomes an exile of this thing that she created. It's really great. And the parallels to Wonder Woman are really cool too. And so, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get into it. I also didn't think, unless we were like a crazy hit, that I was going to get to like chart some new course for Zealot. But I thought maybe I can get her on people's radar. I can suggest this tie between Dinah, which suggests this shared history. And like, if we get a 50 issue run, maybe she comes back and we learn what that story was. Like, again, these are all like hooks you're trying to set for later. I would have loved to have brought Zealot back, but I knew if I wanted to keep diversifying the team and rolling new people on, she was the obvious person to go. It was also very obvious to me that with people's unfamiliar in lack of familiarity with her, she was going to be it's already a big challenge to have an ensemble team and then try to parse out specific character threads or a storyline or a plot that's going to carry through. And with her, I couldn't figure out how to do it in a way that was going to be less disruptive. She was just too unknown, and we had too many characters. So I decided to pull the plug on her, and we sort of showed her being very fed up when she got drawn into it before, and I thought that was a pretty good exit. And I thought if we got to go long enough, I could definitely bring her back, even if she didn't want to be coming back or like having to ask for their help or whatever. I thought it would be a nice way to roll her back in, but of course we didn't get there, so
Is that why
such is
Zealot
life.
doesn't reappear in the on the run arc? Because you do see her when Oracle, of course, gives her all call and like, hey, stay away. But everyone seems to be gearing up and like in spite of what she's saying. And Zealot was one of those people. So I was shocked that she didn't
Yeah,
come in
but
at
I
the
think
climax.
Zealot's dialogue is not a chance.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
I'm not going back in there.
Okay. I
And
took it as not a
I
chance
do
that I'm
think,
obeying. Okay.
oh, yeah, no, that's fair. Fair
Yeah.
enough. No,
Okay.
her chance was not a chance of my getting involved with you
I
guys
see. I
again.
see. Okay.
The last time I could have gotten sucked into a portal in forever, and that might have been preferable to what actually happened to me, which is I had to stand around a bunch and do nothing, which is
Mm,
my nightmare. So I mean, I think she says to Dinah to lose her number or something when she leaves in the portal arc. So she was pretty pissed.
yeah.
She would definitely come back though, and she would come back. She would come back if they really needed her. I think if she felt that other people weren't responding to the all hands,
Mm,
she probably would have gone. I think she felt they were okay. Or, she was off in her own other dimension problems. Who knows?
yeah. Doing whatever she does. Yeah.
That's why you got
Absolutely.
to have a good big roster so that when you do it all hands, even John shows up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So some Babs questions. So good friend of mine, good friend of the show, Donovan Morgan Grant, interviewed you for DC.com once the first issue dropped.
Hmm.
And at that time, he told me he was actually forbidden, not by you, to ask questions about Barbara's role in the book and on the team, which I found ironic given that this was also reflected in the first arc, since no one could tell Barbara about what was happening. Do you have any idea why this particular mandate was in place for press?
I'm honestly really shocked by that because like everyone was asking me about that, so I don't
Mm,
know why they would bother. I mean, nobody was censoring social media that was asking me about it and that were mad about it. So I don't know why they would bother. Um, that I don't know. The generous take is that they were trying to protect me because they knew that was going to be a hot button for people seeing that she wasn't in the first issue and that she wasn't going to show up until the end of the first arc, in fact.
mhm.
Um, so the generous take is that they were trying to protect me, which is nice because listen, it's hard out there. You're not, I mean, I'm just a freelancer. Like, I know that the perception of that is sometimes strange, but it's not like I have a giant corporation behind me. I'm just little old me. So,
Sure.
but I don't know. Maybe well, they also probably, I don't know how much they were aware. I mean, only Ben and I and maybe Leo and Jordy
Mhm.
knew that Barbara was coming in. So they may have also been trying to wave that off because they didn't think we had answers there or that we wouldn't be prepared to say it. But it is surprising to me. I did not know about that. It's a bit odd.
Okay. So Barbara in your book, I would say very much balances between Oracle and Batgirl, though I think towards the end she more leans towards Oracle. What was your, I guess, intention with how Barbara was going to be on the page, and how did you find this balance?
So one of the only things I was told I couldn't do. So, all right. So when we were going into the portal arc, that was where I wanted Barbara to become involved and be trapped with them in the arc. But I couldn't bring her into that and have her actively involved unless she was I mean, I guess I could have had her in there in a sweater and jeans
Sure.
as Oracle, but it didn't seem that interesting for her or for anyone else. And so it seemed like if she was going to be in the field, she was probably going to have to be in the Batgirl suit. And keep in mind, I don't remember exactly the chronology for those issues 9 through 14 or well, 9 through 13, whatever they are, but she had been in the Batgirl suit a lot in Nightwing. So it seemed a little strange to be like, nope, she can't be in that here if we're trying to, I don't know, try to talk to the other books in the line and like what's going on. Um, I don't want her really in that suit, but so the idea that I had, or part of the idea, and listen, I'm upset that I was told no on this, but also we were really pressed for time on this, so I'm not sure how well I would have pulled it off if we tried to integrate it. So part of me is grateful, but my intention was that we would like be more direct about what was going on with her technology, like the technology that was helping her walk by cutting her off from that when she was in the portal.
Mm,
But they didn't want me to do that. I think
mm,
for some very obvious reasons, like that we were creating an issue where maybe there wasn't one, that, or maybe they didn't know that maybe they didn't want to go where I was going to go with it, or maybe they didn't know where I was going to go with it. We were also in this very crazy arc, admittedly, where I'm sure they were pretty nervous anyway, because we were doing all this artist switching and all this stuff. So, and again, I don't know how well I could have pulled it off, but that would have been why she was separated and like how how it all played out with her just trying to get out of that prison. It was a little more involved in the original take because it was more directly about what was going on with her and her fear that maybe she wasn't going to be able to walk because this technology was going bad. And so we were addressing it a little more directly, which could have been good or could have been a problem. I don't know. I think maybe it's better just to leave it alone and just do what we did, which is that as soon as I was able to get her back to Gotham, we just kept her in the Oracle role, which was where I wanted her. So, but so they were nervous about that. So we ended up changing how that all worked. I don't know that it's not exactly how I would have wanted it, but I also, again, I don't know that there was a better path. Um, but yeah, starting at 14, that's sort of how I wanted to use her in the book. Um, if I there just wasn't a way to integrate her into the portal arc. Like she would have just had to be part of what Meridian and Zealot were doing, and that was
Mm.
such a minor role in the book. Like it didn't make sense to bring her into the book and then have nothing happening. It also didn't make sense that Maya wouldn't try to get her into the portal. So all signs pointed to she had to go into the portal, and then it became unclear, like a little bit, what I could do with her once she was in there. So it changed a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah. I will say that a constant frustration I have with DC Comics is that I think it's not consistent with can she walk? Can she
Yes,
not walk? How well can she walk?
yeah,
So definitely not against you, but I'm just saying like every book I read. So I feel
yeah.
like someone just needs to come and be like, this is what we're doing and
I
have it,
think
be the same.
I suspect a lot of the creators feel the same way because it's a destabilizing way to try to chart a course for a character. And even a character that you have to coordinate with other people about because they're in multiple books, like it's a little hard to do. I also think, and we talked about this a little bit off air, but like it feels like with Barbara, the same way the Batgirl Oracle role, it feels like no matter what you do, people are angry.
Yeah.
And I think that has made it very hard for DC to just make a choice because they feel like no matter what path they pick, people are upset. And also what fits, what's the right choice to make for the readers who live in the real world, and what's the right choice for characters who live in a world that has this different technology and everything. I don't know. It's a complicated question. I certainly, it's one certainly above my pay grade, I guess.
Yes, luckily, yeah, for sure. The leadership dynamic between Dinah and Babs, I would say, throughout your run was rather complex. For
Thank
me, it
you.
was at times unclear who the true leader was, because I would say initially it was Dinah, but then, especially as you get towards the end, maybe Barbara was the leader because she was given orders. Dinah was not complying to those orders,
Yeah.
and they kind of butted heads. But who was the true leader? Was it meant to be kind of this complicated? You can really tell because they're just so wrapped up in each other that maybe it's just this dual partnership, and that was his intention.
I think that is the problem. I think they do see it as a dual partnership, but I mean, it's like the military, right? There has to be someone that's in charge that says what we're doing. Otherwise, you get confusion on the field, right? So I think that becomes a little sticking point with them because they do feel like they're co-owners of it, but they both know that only one person should be calling the shots when they're in the field. I think I think they're both a little wrong. I think um I think I think Barbara overreaches a little bit because in a way she feels like she's mission control and she has all the information, and then she also feels like unlike Dinah, she also has the experience of being someone who's been in the field, whereas Dinah only has the field experience. But I would say that she's a little bit right also, like, and the reverse for Dinah. Like Dinah should recognize that Barbara, like they're sort of both right and wrong about the same thing. Like Dinah should be able to look at the fact that Barbara does have experience in the field, but has more information than Dinah has in the moment, and so she should trust her on that. Um, but I also think that like something I was trying to subtly do was Barbara maybe not Barbara maybe bristling a little bit at the team.
Mm.
Like she doesn't want to break it up because she can see that important things are happening there with Barda and Cass and also with supporting Sin and with all of that. But like I think Barda is almost never on Oracle's call sheet because, as we talked about, like literally it's a problem in the book in the meta sense, but it's also a problem for Oracle. In like Barda is a very specific tool and you can't just deploy her against everything. And so to me, Oracle's looking at that field and she's going, I don't want to break this team apart, this field team apart, because I can see what's working about it and what's important about it, but also I've got a new god stumbling around the kitchen when I need, X. And so I think that that is part of it also. Like that's one of the layers of, and Dinah feeling very protective of she built that first team with Zealot and Harley also very with a very specific goal in mind. But then to feel Barbara wanting to break the team, like if she can sense that, like maybe there's some like pride or stubbornness in that too, of like not wanting her to mess with something she put together that is sort of beautiful, even if it's flawed for certain missions. Um, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of complexity there, but you and I were talking about this a little bit before too. Like this was one of my hesitations with doing too much stuff with Barbara and Dinah. A lot of this has been really well covered in, slightly different ways. I'm not telling the same story Gail was, but like, Gail's addressed these issues over time, like the way they sort of rub up against each other. That sounded a little too sexual. Sorry. I know
Listen,
those
you're gonna
ships.
play into the
I know
fanfic.
those ships. Yeah, I know those ships have
Yes.
already launched. So, but there you go. The bristling against each other, against the choices that they would make. Like, I feel like a lot of that's been really done because they're really well developed as a pair of characters. Um, which is one of the reasons I was trying to stake out slightly different territory with them. Um, but I also felt like it's the kind of thing that would come up. It's like any fight couples have, right? Like just because you had that fight and you solved it, quote unquote, doesn't mean things don't reemerge in different ways. So that was sort of the attempt there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We are winding down, but I just wanted to check on your time because I want to be respectful
I'm
of your
okay.
time. Okay, just
I'm
wanted to
okay.
check. So yeah, I've got a couple questions about this final arc and then some just overalls and that'll be it. Velvet Tiger seems to follow me everywhere for some reason. What is it about this character that makes creators bring her back?
I mean, some of it is just Barbara doesn't have enough really great rogues that the work. I mean, again, I wasn't trying, but what I was really trying to do with Velvet Tiger was make a villain that was Cass and Barbara,
Hmm.
right? Because the idea would be that Velvet Tiger had old beef with Barbara and doesn't like Barbara and blah, 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 right? From their early adventures. But that now that she's got this power back, which I'm not sure why Brendan and his team took this away from her. It's much cooler with her being able to like she's got a very weird power where she can sort of super speed because she's like stepping through bits of time a little bit. It's very weird. It's hard to explain, which is probably why they wanted to jettison it, but it makes her a much better fight for Cass, because most people can't stand up to Cass for 2 seconds. So, we just gotta give it a little bit. We just gotta throw her off her game a little bit and like suggest that maybe if Velvet Tiger did other things like train, like maybe she could have an advantage here if she wanted to just stop complaining and like do some work. So it was a little bit that we wanted, and we obviously had this tie-in. I was looking through a lot of Barbara's old villains for who would be someone who maybe in the future could birth some children that would cause some problems for Barbara. And that I would also say that Velvet Tiger, she seems like someone who holds a grudge. She
Hmm.
seems like someone who positions herself and, she's a socialite. She's got access to money. She's a little bit crazy. Like, these are all fun things to play with for a supervillain. So for me, she just fit a couple things I needed. And then, you know, I don't know. It's again, it's another thing. Like some of this we said off air, so I guess I'll repeat it. But the Shadow Army, I developed them in part. I created Damon Prime because we couldn't have Calculator because he was busy on another project. And then when building the Shadow Army, I wouldn't have tried to do that in issue 20. I was trying to do something new and to build us a real new rogue gallery for the team for the Birds of Prey that would be a good sort of assembled from characters that they'd fought a lot on their own in the past who would have grudges or might be interested in taking them down. So Copperhead often fights Black Canary. Velvet Tiger has often been a Batgirl villain. things like this. I brought in Ink, who is a great character who, if nothing else, we have the Barda cast relationship, and I got Ink into the normal continuity so people can use her now. I hope that goes well and I don't get in trouble because it's a great character. Now that she's bouncing around our timeline, everyone should use her because she's super fun. I'm sure Batman will get her right away and I'll be furious. um, so but I never would have built that if I'd known we were going to end with 28, like when I was trying to build 20, that next arc that was like 20 through 24, 25. I didn't know. I thought I'm still trying to create villains for the long term that we can return to. We can defeat them in 5 issues and then they'll come back in 10 issues and try another round or whatever. And instead, I ended up having to just use them through the end because there wasn't time to sort of like bring in another capstone. So, sort of didn't go exactly how I wanted. I do think we made the best of it. There were some really fun things like Barta getting to get huge and them getting to have weird off outfits that were fun, so it was fun. I don't know. I was grateful that we had some heads up so that we could at least end it. But there's never enough room there to be like, because you'd need to really end it well, you'd like need a whole other arc, and you've never got that kind of time. So we were lucky, but also a bummer, both
Yeah,
both things can be true, unfortunately.
absolutely. Well, next time you're on Birds of Prey, could you bring back Killer Moth?
I'll take the request.
Okay. Um,
Just don't say Lady Blackhawk. I can't hear Lady Blackhawk one more
no,
time. My
no,
head will
no.
explode.
I'll try other things. Though I'm surprised no one said anything about the gay icons that are Savant and Creole. Did anyone request those?
I I maybe had a couple for Savant requests for Savant and Creole, which I'm not disinterested in, but I confess I do like to keep it
All
a
female.
little more female.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that to be a hard and fast rule. I mean, John showed up and we showed Green Arrow in issue 3 or whatever that 2 or 3, whatever that was. But yeah, I mean, there's so few female teams. Like
Yeah.
let them hang out together. And I do think adding a dude, John notwithstanding, it does change the dynamic a little bit. I mean, maybe when you've got enough, it doesn't, but yeah, but I also like that. I like that sort of inverse thing. I see people joking about it on the internet sometimes that I like to basically invert the old team that would all guys and one female, and I like to do all women and one man because I
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing it on purpose, but it has happened a few times, which makes me think I am
Sure.
subconsciously doing
Yeah.
it.
A reverse harem. You're one step away from writing
Yeah,
a
yeah,
reverse harem
yes.
romance novel.
Yes,
So there you go.
I did it with I think the other really notable one was on Captain Marvel. There's like an X-Men team up and it's like it's these Captain Marvel characters and these X-Men and then Gambit. Like it's just
Oh,
the lone dude hanging out. So it was fun.
yes. Is Ink a triple agent or was everything in the end planned?
It's planned. So yeah, I mean I wanted it to read as Barbara knew
Okay.
in the end that she was going to flip, but I do think that it's sort of like, I don't know, have you ever watched Homeland? It's
I
like
have.
spies dealing with spies. It's like who can trust anybody? So I think that that was planned between them, but that's why the drones were ready because is she really going to do what she said she's going to do? I'm not entirely sure. And so that's why Barbara's got her backup plan going. Um, with those drones, which, maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. Probably not against both Damon Prime and Ink, but what
Yeah,
else are you going to do, right?
very true. Yeah. We never learn who Damon Prime is at the end. Do you know who it is? And was it Vivi's twin?
Ha! Interesting. It is not Vivi's twin,
Okay.
but I did think of that at the very end. I was like, oh my God, are people going to think this is Vivi's missing twin? I was like, it can only really be that if we're doing more, I think. So it's
Okay.
not Vivi's twin. Um, hopefully Cass does. I mean, I'm sure Cass will try to help her, but hopefully Cass, that's a secret story somewhere with Cass helping Vivi find her twin or figure out what happened to her twin. Uh, it could be Damon Prime, I guess, but I wouldn't set up that tease. Yeah, I wouldn't have
Okay.
done that with the ending. Only if we were still going, that would have been a good future story, I think.
Lovely. Okay. What is, and do you have, I guess I should say, your relationship with Greek and Roman mythology? That was something that I really appreciated because, of course, you have Megara, who, part of the Furies, the Pleiades, which really, the names of the daughters, that Velvet Tie. I don't know how many people caught that, but I'm like, what's happening here? So, do you have a mythological, just something that interests you?
Well, so since you do, I hope you'll enjoy Absolute Wonder Woman that we talked about because there's a lot of that in there, obviously.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't have any fancy accolades, although I was thinking the other day, this came up in a podcast, and I had a mythology class in college that was my favorite class. And why didn't I just make all my classes that? Like I could have done that. Why didn't I do that? I mean, I'm not saying I wanted to do that more than I wanted to be a comic book artist, but it was my favorite class in a good distance of anything else I tried while I was at SCAD or before I went to SCAD. So, um, I love it. I think it's just a natural thing. I think, it's a very well-worn trope now that like superheroes are they're the mythological stories of old, right? They're the stories of the gods that we have now today. So I do think that there's a very natural like overlap there. It obviously happens incredibly organically in Wonder Woman, Absolute Wonder Woman. Here, here, I think you have to be more careful. It made sense to bring it in because we were dealing with Amazon stuff and that's all
Hmm.
connected. So that's how we got to Megara. Um, but I think that the Pleiades, I was very nervous about that because I knew it's something I talk a lot about when people ask me about Absolute Wonder Woman because I think there's just a very tricky line there because people get very overwhelmed very quickly if they don't have a knowledge base in that. But if we know about it, it's all so interesting and weird and cool and fun that I think it's easy to like fall into assuming other people know it. I mean, like I was talking to my partner, Persephone shows up in Absolute Wonder Woman. And I mean, he just like had no idea who that was. And I was like, how can you not know who Persephone is? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, she's the explanation that she's the old-timey explanation for the Greeks of the seasons. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, what? I was like, you didn't hear the story in school about Demeter and how she goes into mourning for, 3/4 of the year, or a quarter of the year because her daughter is away, but she has to go back. And he's like, I mean, it was just all right over his head. And it's funny because we had done the previous year, we had done a Studio Ghibli watch.
Mm.
And I don't know how into those you are, but not Spirit World. I keep wanting to say Spirit World,
Oh,
Spirited
Spirited Away.
Away.
Yeah.
So in that one, when the parents start eating the food, I was like, "Oh God, they're eating the food." And Adam's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "They're going to be stuck there." And later when we had turned it off, he goes, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "Read some mythology." I was like, "What's wrong with you?" So I think there's this thing where if you know mythology and you read it, like it underpins so many kind of fables and morals and fairy tales and all sorts of, there's all those stories have those same threads.
Hmm.
And it can be easy to assume other people have that knowledge at their fingertips, but I know from personal experience they do not. And so you have to be really careful. I mean, there's another podcast I listen to sometimes that reviews Birds of Prey, and like they still are stumbling over Scylla's and Megara's name. And I'm not sure I'm saying them right. I don't know Greek or Latin or anything cool, but you just can't let it get in your way. And I see it happening all the time with people where they let it get in their way and it impedes their enjoyment. So I think I've done a really good job in Absolute Wonder Woman of finding a way to approach it for the most part that is a easier lead in for people who don't know. I think it's harder in something like Birds of Prey where you have a lot of characters and a lot of things and it's not naturally tied to mythology like that. So I feel like maybe with the Pleiades I went too far. I like it. I think it's fun. I think it's funny, but it's maybe too inaccessible to people. But the Megara thing, I feel like that mostly worked. It tied more tightly into what was going on and the plotting, and it created a thing that we could make into a thing later that was going to become, that was going to evolve and become different, and that was also going to maybe create a really organic, I hoped, like superhero code name for Sin so that she could be Sin and she could also be Megara and they could like find that way to be together. So I don't know. I guess all I'm saying is like anything, it's it's mixed how well it works, and it's hard to know as the creator when you're in it when you're making the right choice for the project or when you're like getting in your own head about cool stuff you like. And listen, a lot of the job is making convincing other people that the stuff you think is cool is cool. That's a lot of it, right? Like to find the compelling story that's going to compel others. But I just think it's hard to sometimes know where you should draw the line and be like, ah, that's too much. That's too much for people to get, you know?
Yeah. You forgot Sin's other alter ego, wasn't it the waiter?
Oh, yes.
I will
You
say as a
gotta,
teacher, yeah, go ahead.
no, you have to be careful about making jokes like that. I saw someone online taking that seriously.
Oh, that her
That
name
that
is
was her code
her
name. It's the
superhero
waiter. They're
name
like, well,
is
I hope
the
that won't be
waiter.
it. I was like, dude, these are the jokes. What are we even doing?
Yeah. I will say, I think as a reader, a lover of literature, and a teacher, it does make me a little sad what you're speaking of, just that I feel like we've fallen into laziness or becoming
Yes.
disengaged readers, and that we
Yes.
should try to be engaged readers. Because I myself, like when I discover something I don't know, like a word, for instance, I'm not going to just like pass over said word. I'm going to look it
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and sort of clear up that ignorance. So I feel like
Yeah.
I really like the Pleiades, the fact that you had that. I thought that was amazing.
Well,
And for
that's
someone who,
great.
yeah, and for someone who didn't get it, I feel like, well, why don't you look it up and see what's
I
going on
mean,
here?
listen, you're talking my language, Stella, but we're also talking about, the things that you have to deal with as a creator. It's like I really feel like the thing I think about the most of anything I think about these days is the knife's edge of what's over explaining a thing and
Mm,
what's under explaining a thing. Because there really is such a broad swath of the way people read these books. I mean, I talk to people who don't really understand how to read comics, by which I mean they can read them in order, but they don't understand that the gutter, things happen in the gutter. It's not a continuous, it's not a film where there's no pieces missing. The beauty of a comic is where you put those gutters and what you're asking the reader to fill in the story. It's it's one of the most beautiful things about comics, and it breaks my heart all the time to encounter readers who I can see are not doing that part of the work, and so they're reading too fast. I don't know what, like I know that comics are not as dense as they used to be, and for one, I applaud that. Writers getting out of artists' way is a great thing. The more we can do it, the better. Um, it's a big disconnect I have with old comics is not that I don't want to read a lot. I'm a fucking writer. Of course I want to read. But when it's the writing is describing what the artist is drawing in the panel, I mean, I just check out immediately. Like, why are you describing what this artist has perfectly already conveyed in visuals, which are more powerful than words? Like, why would you do that? So, but there's this complete merge between a reader who literally needs that. Like, I'm not saying that's why that used to happen, but I can imagine now a reader who needs that in order to understand. They need it drawn and they need it said. And then there's a reader who wants almost nothing, right? Because they want to interpret everything. They want to use their brain to the max. And they're willing to like let it be esoteric or experimental or whatever. And you're trying to please all of those people and you can't catch them all. So, like, where's the line, right? Where's the line between I'm going to get 50 questions about this on Twitter and people are going to be confused on Reddit because they don't understand? And where's the line by what's happening to me right now, which is a bunch of people yelling at me because I'm putting too many words across Mateus Bagara's beautiful artwork? To which I say, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just trying to find the balance. I'm trying to make sure everyone understands the themes we're talking about, the
Yeah.
actions that are happening, the evolution of this character. These are my priorities. I'm not always going to nail it, but it's a constant conversation between the art and the writing and the colors, all of it, and how it all comes together to a final form. And you're doing 5 of these a month. You're not always going to nail it. Like I always put 100% in. I I literally am trained to. I can't. I'm like a worker bee. I can't do it a different way, but it doesn't always mean it works 100%. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's tough. Well, two final questions. So, this book, you returned to that writer artist partnership that you had previously with Leonardo Romero. Was that easy to slip back into? And what did you learn from your time working with him on Hawkeye that you brought to Birds of Prey?
It's so easy working with Leo. He's so smart. He's so good. One of my greatest disappointments is that because he left early in the run, we weren't able to dig a little bit more into. I mean, he was doing stuff in that first issue. We just didn't get a chance to explore it enough where he was sort of approaching like, I'm going to draw Zealot's pages a little differently because she's like a crazy 90s character. And I'm going to approach like Cass this way because she's this 2000s character that has these very different like sensibilities. Like just so much like really cool thought he put into it above and beyond everything else. And I asked him to draw a million Amazons. Like, what a nightmare. Might as well have been horses, right? Like, it was such a labor of love, and he did such a beautiful job. I learned, I mean, I think I learned how to lean into what Leo wants to do and will be great at, and also how to get out of his way. Um, but like, when that first, I mean, I knew it was going to be great, but when that first double page spread of Cass and Dinah fighting on the rooftop came in, I was like, oh, it's going to be something special. Like I was really excited because I felt just this huge surge of confidence that, no, we weren't going to be able to please everyone, but we'd made a really great book. We'd made a really great Birds of Prey book, and hopefully we'd make a bunch more. And I was really proud of it. So,
Yeah, I mean, I loved how he used the panels in
yeah.
different way. Like they weren't always just straight boxes,
Yeah.
that they were manipulated. The seam, like I loved those scenes because of how it
Oh,
changed.
that
And
scene was so
even
great.
later on, I feel like even your other artists were doing amazing things. I think one of the last arcs I was reading, Barda uses one of the white spaces between
Yeah.
panels to swing through,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
missed that the first time I reviewed it. I was like, holy heck, that's amazing. So there was
Yeah.
I think you were very, which I'm sure you feel this, but very blessed with great artists on this run.
I was. And the reason I brought the scene back was because Leo made it so freaking cool. I mean, that first panel where, I mean, like I had described that it was this weird other world or whatever, but I didn't know he was going to have her stick her hand into the white space and has it reverse out. Like it was so cool. I was like, okay, well, we got to find more ways to use that. And I was glad we did. I dropped the ball a little bit on how we used it in the Unreality, but when we used it in Juan's arc, Juan was super into it. He was very into the whole idea that Leo had begun and he wanted to carry it forward and he found super cool ways to use it. I loved those Barda scenes where he was making use of the space and showing that she could manipulate the seam to her needs. It was one of my favorite things we did in the whole run. It was just such a simple little fun, cool moment. And that was all Leo. I mean, Juan built on it. But it's just those great things that can come from a great artist who just, Leo's just going about his business like, oh, maybe she wants it to be like this. I'm like, well, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I guess it'll be that. But
Yeah.
he also just does simple things like, there's that scene when Harley is like counting on her fingers because she's got all these questions and it's like more than 5 questions. And so he made the panels separate out. It's just great
And it
storytelling.
breaks. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
goes off the pan. Yeah, the
And if
page.
you
Yeah.
like interesting storytelling and formatting, that's another reason
Oh
you're going to
my
love
gosh,
Absolute
you're
Wonder
really
Woman.
plugging this.
I am. Well, I didn't know you were going to be so ideal of a reader for it. I'm going to be heartbroken now if you hate it.
No, oh gosh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I am 100% gonna look for that. Yeah, I'm sorry that I had not. I think I knew that she was happening. Like I said, popping up on Instagram, I did not connect that you had been writing her. And I'm one of those people that likes to support. Like if I find someone that I like to get more of them their stuff. So
Oh,
I
that's very
apologize
kind.
that I have not
We
gotten it,
need that.
but
No, no, I'm just
I'm going to be
excited
going
now.
out there. I promise you. Yeah.
Now I'm excited. I hope you'll
Yes.
really vibe with it since we know you're into, I mean, Hayden just doing, I mean, like Hayden is doing panel layout stuff over there that I think is gonna like redefine comics a little bit. Like it's popular enough and it's weird enough and it's cool enough that it's really, I mean, I don't think we've seen since like J.H. Williams 3
Oh, wow.
on Batwoman. I
Yeah.
don't think we've seen like, and they're totally different. They have very different styles and approaches, but the way they think about the page is similar to me in how they are able to process it down, both from a storytelling point of view and from a like graphic perspective, you know?
Yeah. My last question, I'm not even sure how to phrase this, and it might just be more like praise. And it's been a while since I've read your Hawkeye and your Captain Marvel, so I might have just forgotten that this is how you write. But something that I really appreciated about your writing and this title overall is that I think it very much is able to balance between this gravitas, these serious situations, and lightening the mood
Mm.
in appropriate ways, because I always think about Thor, Love and Thunder, that just went way too far with the humor. Even though there's a lot of serious stuff going on, I was like, that was way inappropriate. But here
Yeah.
it's like there's serious stuff going on, and then you have Harley
Yeah.
making some sort of joke, and it lands well.
Thank
So
you.
I just want to say, like, really well done. But also, how I mean, is that just your style? How are you able to kind of figure out like this is going to be a great
I
point for this, and it
think
lands?
I think without sounding like I think I'm the greatest writer of all time, which I definitely do not, I will say that while I have very frustrating weaknesses that I try to deal with in my work, that's a strength. Dialogue and the way characters sound, that comes very naturally to me, especially if I know the character very well, or if I didn't know the character well, but I've really taken the time to like research them and build that voice out. I'm one of those writers where as long as I do that properly for the characters take over a lot in like how they communicate, what they do. Because sometimes I'll start writing something for someone and it's just not coming out right. And I'm like, what is wrong with this? And then it's like, oh, it's because she wouldn't say that. Like, so we got to change this. And then you come out the other side and you're like, oh, that feels right. So I think I have a good ear for things feeling natural. It's one of the reasons a note that you get a lot at any publisher, I'm sorry to say, although I haven't gotten it a lot at DC, so I knock wood, I should. Um, you get the note a lot about name checking characters,
Mm.
and it's incredibly difficult to make that natural. Oh, we'd like to name check all these characters on the first page they appear in. Well, oh, and we'd like Captain Marvel, who's best friends with Jessica Drew, to call her Spider Woman. Like, what do you see, Spider Woman? Like, it's not normal, man. People don't talk like that. So, there's a lot of push and pull for me with my editor between meeting the demands and me saying that's not how people talk. It will read like a record scratch. Like, stop trying to do that to this work. Like, our whole point is to make it not read like a record scratch. Like, that's what we're here for. So, I'm always looking, and it doesn't always work, but I'm always looking for the ways to integrate that to really feel real, to feel like the way people talk and joke with each other. It's one of the reasons I like sort of misfitty found families because you maybe get more interesting dynamics between that group in how they respond to things and what kind of reactions they have. I'm in a book like Birds of Prey, I'm certainly always looking to keep it a little bit quippy and witty because we want those characters sort of snapping and popping on the page, whether that's within a fight or just. But you also need that, like, you also need to be able to transition to that sort of emotional tete-a-tete between Dinah and Sin on a roof, where they're saying honest things to each other that are important that sometimes get left on the cutting room floor, but that like I think are some of the most important things in a comic. Um, so I think it's all about that balance, but I will say that that's the part that comes to me easiest and fastest in a comic. I struggle more with plot A thing that I struggle with a lot is that I love mystery stories and detective stories, and a lot of that includes hiding the villain. And so sometimes, even if my villains are well built, they often, through the nature of the story, are not revealed until too late. And so you get a lot from that. You get a lot of suspense and mystery and intrigue, but you lose things too. You lose people feeling connected to the villain. You lose people feeling like they understand the plan or worrying about, oh, did I miss something? Why don't I know who's doing this? You know what I mean? So like everything has considerations. Um, and you just got to weigh it. Like, what's the more important thing here? And in the case of villains, I I really still struggle with it because I still always want, I mean, it's part of what I really enjoyed about the beginning of the Shadow Army arc is that things are happening to them and they really don't understand what's happening and why. And but I worked hard to make sure we were revealing those villains in stages so that we could get them on the page because I'm trying to work on those things for myself. But it's a work in progress, like anything with writing.
Well, was there anything that you wish I would have asked you in the course of this interview?
Let's see. No, I think it was a really good interview.
I'm glad. I thought it was a great conversation. I learned a lot. You get lots of, yeah, inside baseball. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So,
I feel like I'm a little too honest all the time, which is some good quality, but like anything, it has its dark sides. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people misunderstand me or want to take things out of context because they want to twist things to be the way they think. I mean, like, I saw this guy one time talking about how I don't care about my books and all I do is write high, which is just a
oh,
crazy
okay.
thing to say. And I think he's referring to like one time on Twitter during the pandemic, I talked about that I had eaten edibles, and it was during edibles that I came up with the idea for snats, which are those snake cats that have the smelly farts.
Oh.
And yeah, I was high when I came up with that, but it was a great idea that the next day I was like, yep, still good, still works for this absurd idea we need with these crazy shirtless wizards. Like what would they be riding if not snats? Like it's just a ridiculous thing. So, it sucks that you could say something like that and it could be so taken out of context and then that person could like go off into their lives believing that you don't care about what for me it's a dream job. It's like a complete dream. I'm getting to live my dream and this guy thinks I'm blowing it off because I don't care about it. It's weird the way people want to cling on to certain things and like twist them. I don't know. It's weird.
Well,
So
yeah.
sometimes too much honesty backfires, but
Well, hopefully
what are
you
you gonna
trust
do?
me enough to, when I'm editing, not cut it up so that you say, I hate Babs, and it's like out there, and then it's a big news item. And then, yeah, hopefully there's enough
I
trust
mean,
on
new
my
fear
side.
unlocked, Stella. Great job.
Where can people find and support you? I think you're no longer on the X. Is that correct? But you're on Blue Sky?
Yeah, I mean, I have an account there just because I don't want people to take it over and pretend to be me. Not that I
Oh
don't know
gosh,
why
yeah.
anyone would bother, but again, talk about fears unlocked. So I'm on there, but I don't post. But so Blue Sky is the best, and I've got a newsletter on Substack, which is a good way to keep in touch with me. On Blue Sky, I'm just under Kelly Thompson. Substack is 1979 semifinalist.substack.com.
And then purchasing Absolute Wonder Woman every month.
Yeah.
That's the one to go to. Are there any other projects that are out that you're, I guess,
Um,
vying for? Can you say anything?
Sure. Well, so I'm doing for Dynamite, I'm doing a Buffy the Vampire Slayer and an Angel book, and they're
Okay.
sort of written in tandem, so they'll be coming out once a month each, and they're pretty tied together for the first arc. So what that means, people, is if you're buying Angel, you want to buy Buffy, and if you're buying Buffy, you want to buy Angel, and I'm sorry, but it'll be worth it. And also after the first arc, you can just buy one if you insist, but you'll still be wrong. So you probably shouldn't do that. Anyway, and I've got some more Jeff coming in the spring, I
Oh,
think, from Marvel, another miniseries or something. We'll have news about that soon. And there's another thing I'm doing, but I can't mention that yet. So
Okay,
I
that's
gotta
fine.
keep that one on the down low.
No worries. I two comments. One, Buffy and Angel, that's at a good time because of the revived television show. So hopefully you get good sales.
Yeah, you
And
always hope that's gonna bump you, but I don't know.
okay. And then
No.
two, I forgot about Jeff as I was doing research for like, find all your accolades. I'm like, this person came up with Jeff. Did you have the edibles too? And you were like, I should come up with a
I
shark.
did not. I did not. The story of Jeff is that in the first issue of West Coast Avengers, Stefano Caselli was drawing these land sharks that MODOK had made to attack Santa Monica. And one of the background land sharks looked really concerned and like he did not want to be participating in the event of eating up the Santa Monica people. And I just couldn't stop thinking about him. And we'd recently, the previous year, we'd gotten kittens. And I don't know, I just sort of thought, what if it was a pet that, didn't want to be a monster and ends up being part of the West Coast Avengers? And the rest is history, man. He is taken over. It's crazy.
He really has. In which case, you don't obviously don't have to, say anything, but I do hope that you're getting money for all of the things that Jeff has been appearing in. Because
There's some money. It's
okay,
not as much money as you want it to be when he's
no,
that famous,
yeah,
but there's some money.
okay,
It's good.
okay,
It's people supporting him and him showing up in other things is definitely benefiting me, which is what you want when you do this. So it's good.
yeah,
It's hard, it's complicated in how you feel about all of it, but it's good.
yeah.
It's been very positive overall.
That's good. Yeah, I remember way back when I think Doomsday was kind of the big thing of like who's getting these creator, owned rights and the monies and
Yeah.
things like that. So I'm glad that
The
they're doing something.
part of the thing I'm really grateful for is that, I obviously want the like Guri Hero version of Jeff to be the one that's on stickers and bumper stickers and keychains and whatever. And because Marvel Rivals is so popular, it's that is dominating it right
Mm-hmm.
now. But I will say that I'm very grateful to them that they were really smart about the design. It looks like even though it's different, and it fits the Marvel Rivals universe, which was really important. It still feels like Jeff. It feels right for him, which is great because a lot of people only know him from that. So
Yeah.
it's really great that they were so careful with it because that could have been really wrong, and instead it's been awesome. Been really
Lovely.
fun.
Lovely.
Yeah, I got the new keychain,
Oh,
and honestly, it's awesome. I
oh,
feel bad because I finally had to get rid of my Martian Manhunter
oh,
keychain that I had because I couldn't sustain them both. But
poor
I'm
Jean.
sorry, Martian Manhunter. I always love you. But I mean, I literally made Jeff.
Yeah.
He's got to advance to the keychain, man.
Yeah, he came from you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I sign off, remember you can send any questions or comments to backworldoracle@gmail.com. And if you have anything for me, for Kelly, I can gather them up and forward them on. So please ask away. Well, I guess that's up to you. You're a busy person. I can ask before I send anything. You can like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter @backworldoracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, as you're witnessing now. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. And once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Backworld Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. Do you know the sign off of this show?
I
That's okay
thought
if
I
you don't.
did. I thought I did. I thought I did.
That's quite all right. Even my friend from previous, he's like, no, I don't. So it's fly on Babs Lover. So I'll cue
Oh
you in. I'll cue you in. Okay. And until next time,
no, I can't do it. Fly on Batgirl?
Babs,
No,
Babs lovers.
Babs
Babs lovers.
lovers.
You got it?
Okay, all right,
Okay.
I got it now.
And until next time,
Fly on, Babs lovers.
you got it.